and my father and mother thought I was crazy. And my father had so far had gone so far to call me counter-revolutionary. Mao died when I was 13 years old, and I think this is the only good thing he did in his life. So they began the project to recruit young intellectuals to become party member.
And you were one of them, right?
Yeah, I was recruited. Some people who try to quit the party end up in prison even. I'm actually, with the help of friends, managed to get to uh, Beijing International Airport, where there was a big chaos. The order to kill has not stopped. So I realized that this soldier actually refused to kill. He could just kill.
Today, I have the honor of talking to Jian, a brave man whose experiences can teach us so much about life, democracy, and leadership. From growing up in communist rural China to being a communist prodigy, and then secretly and then openly rebelling and fighting against the communist dictatorship, his journey is truly remarkable. He was present during the infamous Tiananmen Square demonstrations. He even studied in one of the most prestigious universities in the US and spent 5 years in Chinese prison because of his activism. He even received the Nobel Peace Prize on behalf of his friend and fellow activist Liu Xiaobo. So let's dive into this inspirational life story. Jian, thank you so much for joining us for the conversation with the Pulse of Change. Welcome to our podcast.
Thank you for having me, Nicola.
Of course, and I'm particularly happy to have conversation with you because, I'm grateful for all the work you've done. I learned so much from you since we met years ago, and I'm 100% sure that listeners will learn a lot from your journey. And you went through many extraordinary experiences, and I would love to start at the beginning. I always like to start from kind of like a backstory. Tell us a bit, how was it? You grew up in rural China in 60s and 70s. Can you describe to us how was life then? How was, growing up in communist China?
Okay. I was born 3 years before the Cultural Revolution, which was 10 years of disaster um, brought about by the paramount leader of the Chinese Communist Party, CCP, Mao Zedong. That was after 17 years of ruling of CCP already. He had a series of policy failures, including the Great Leap Forward, 3 years Great Famine, that resulted in 60 million deaths of Chinese lives. So he faced a challenge from top leadership, his comrades, and he prepared for a couple of years, try to launch a mass movement to finish his goal of pulling down these challengers on the top leadership. So as ordinary people, they had no idea what's going on. They just follow the great leader that, they actually is a big personality cult in China. Everybody followed for no reason. And that movement actually affected almost every family, including mine. My father was a party chief in a small city. It's an urban area, but close to the rural area. And a lot of people actually seize this opportunity to revenge against the party officials who had followed orders from above to economically exploited them, in the name of collectivization, commune, and also persecuted them politically. Uh, so party chief, like my father, was powerful in the locality. He could just easily put anybody in prison. He can grab the property of any people in that area. So people harbor hatred against the officials like my father. So they seized the opportunity that the paramount leader gave them to revenge against the party officials. So my father was sent into countryside to do a labor to reform so-called re-education camp.
So he
And
was punished by the central authority just in case. And he didn't know, well, if he's against or for, but it was kind of like a blanket punishment for all
party
leaders.
officials.
They were sent.
Yeah, my father was very loyal to Mao Zedong and to their CCP authority. He had little idea what's going on the top. All he could do just follow the order from above and maintain his loyalty to the great leader.
Yeah.
But he still was affected. But how could Mao easily do it? Simply because after the 17 years of rule, people harbor hatred against the party official that they have a personal contact with. They have no idea what's going on, but they have a personal contact with those officials. Those people who had brought misery upon themselves. Yeah. So they seized this opportunity to revenge. So my father was beaten up severely before he was sent to a countryside. I was about 3.5 years old, and I saw with my own eyes my father was beaten up for certain period.
So if I understand, so he was following the party line in the city where you're from or the town where you're from, and then at one point it came order from the top, hey, everybody, all the party leaders, now, it's your fault because things are not going the way we wanted. We're going to send you to these rural areas. So he goes to rural area, if I understand, and then he gets beaten up there because he gets blamed for everything, right? He's blamed from the top. And then what people on the ground see, they don't see Mao Zedong. They don't see all these like untouchable. They just see the local officials. So you grew up basically seeing your father falling from the power of the being a party kind of like a leader in that area to now being held accountable by rural people for the things that he just had to kind of he had to comply with, and he had to kind of like had to do.
He personally paid the price.
Yeah.
For all the miseries the CCP had brought to the people, and got beaten up and vandalized against. And I saw this terror when I was very little. Of course, I was terrified, but in the heart of a small boy, I also harbored some kind of hatred against the people who vandalized against my father. One day, one thing happened. I figured out it was more complicated than a 7-year-old boy could comprehend. And that when I was in first grade, after school, I went to a hillside to play, just to play. And I was fascinated by two workers who tried to drill a hole in a rock, big rock, and put explosive into it and get building material actually to the downhill to build houses or walls, anything like that. But when they worked, they sang a work song, which fascinated me. So I got very close. They wave the hammers, big hammer, as they did it. They sang a song,
Sang a song. Yeah.
and I got really amazed and got very close. And there was a brick for them. They tried to tease a little boy like myself. That time, my father already in the countryside for a few years, and they tried to tease a little boy, asking me, "What's your name?" When they heard the last name, they figured out I was the son of the party leader, and they suddenly became silent. Then went back to work. As they began working again, they sang again. And from their song, I could understand they are called my father's names, with abusive words, very dirty words. And I was embarrassed and terrified. And I couldn't understand what's going on because I thought to myself, I was sympathetic to those workers who I know live a very miserable life, and I have a great sympathy to them. And my father now was also suffering in a remote area. I didn't know when he would be back home. And actually, we have some affinity. Why you hate me and my father? So I figured out it was much, much more complicated than a 7-year-old boy could comprehend.
It sounds like everybody was suffering. You saw suffering of the workers who were making fun of your father, thinking he has the power, who was also at the same time suffering in the village.
Yeah.
And all of this because of the same system, right? Or the same regime.
Exactly. So it's, during these years, I saw many killings happened to my neighbors, to parents of my classmates, and I saw fightings on the street. So I could simply describe these 10 years as kill or be killed. And my father's return confirmed this perception. My father returned a few years after sent to the countryside because Mao Zedong thought those rebels were not trustworthy. By that time, he already pulled down all the challengers on the top leadership. He finished his job, cracked down on them. So he just brought back all the old cadres, including myself, my father, himself, and he become powerful again. The first thing the old cadres like my father would do after they become powerful again was to put those who vandalized them against them into prison, and some of them committed suicide, and some got killed.
The vicious circle, yeah. But tell me about a time. I also remember in one of our conversations, you told me a story how it's kind of like the first time you rebelled against the system. Can you tell me that story? It was a story about you. Exactly. You know what I'm talking about, I think.
Yeah, and not long after my father became party chief again, there was a big flood. Big flood. In my country, in my hometown and surrounding area. And my father organized a rescue effort in the local. And he took me to the countryside as he tried to do rescue work. And I was surprised by the miserable life that the peasants lived. And in many cases, one household only had one quilt to cover them when they sleep. So most people just sleep in the straws after a day hard work and very, very little food to feed them. They went to bed. Of course, there is no bed. They just slept in straws. And in some household, one one family only have one pair of pants, and whoever went out would wear that pant, so they don't have enough clothes to cover their body. So that I saw with my own eyes. I was shocked because we had been taught that the people of China lived a happy life. We were the happiest people on earth. So I discovered a big discrepancy between the reality and what we had been taught by the CCP. And I figured out there was something wrong. And I began to challenge my father at a dinner table. And we argued all the time. And I couldn't get over thinking the peasants just slept in straw. So I removed my mattress. I slept on the some kind, it's not straw, but similar thing. Try to show my sympathy to the peasants. And my father and mother thought I was crazy. And but my father had gone so far to call me counter-revolutionary.
It's dangerous at the time to be called that.
Yeah. And at that time, the government tried to control what farmers produce and what farmers sell. The farmers just gave what they produce, almost what they produce, to the government as a tax.
So they would hide part of the food they would produce so they can secretly sell it later so they can survive. Because otherwise the government will take everything from them.
Exactly. That time I engaged in my first rebellion act. So I helped those farmers to sell what they want to sell in the free market. No free market, just to the street. And
black market.
The government engaged in crackdown on them, and they recruit a small student like myself. That time I was about 12 or 13 years old, to help them to round them up.
Wow! So the government recruited 12-year-olds.
Yeah, 12 to
tell
years.
On the grown-ups who were hiding and then selling food.
Yeah, to help them to round them up. And then what I saw was, when they round up those farmers who try to sell their producers, they grab them and put them in prison for a couple of days, let them go. So I was so angry, and I was one who always helped them how to hide the roundup, and I give them information. And when the government will come down to them, sometimes when I couldn't act soon enough, when we got close, I would shut it up. I say, "Government is coming," and to let them know. So
you were trying to let them know when the government is coming to take them, but you said you even shouted as you're walking to the so they can hear you.
Walking to the spot.
Would that be dangerous for you?
Oh yeah, but I still did it, and the government is coming could be interpreted both ways.
Be aware. I see.
Or one as to tell them to run away. I say, government is coming. You have to pay attention, or something like. I deliberately make my sound so loud.
They can hear you, so they can run. You can give them a head start.
Could hear me ahead of time, giving them enough time to run away. So that's my rebellious act.
You became an activist at in a way at the age of 12. I find it insane, like as you're describing the society that you lived in, how much distrust there is, because you have to be constantly paying attention of who is listening, what is being said. Every move you're making might candidate you to go to a prison or
Yeah,
worse. And at the same time, and it can be even your family, right? And at
yeah.
the same time, it creates this mental load, right? Like who is watching, who is listening in. That must be tough to live in that
Yeah,
environment.
these are tough years, very tough years. And
Yeah,
from that time on, I sort of, from that time, I committed myself already. I committed to do something to help those poor people.
yeah,
Very primitive idea. I don't know what I would do, but I was determined to do something in the future when I grew up to help those people.
yeah. I also just want to draw a parallel between what you just said. So on one side, you have a government who has this leader who claims to be flawless, and to maintain that narrative of being flawless, they have to lie constantly, because whatever goes wrong, it cannot be their fault because they're
Right.
flawless. So they have to blame someone else. So very often, you will end up on the wrong end of a stick, even if you didn't do anything, just because you're a scapegoat. Hey, is this person? Send them to camp or whatever, to prison. So you have to maintain that. So everybody has to lie a lot, and everybody has to kind of like comply with the lie that you see for yourself. Like you said, Chinese people are living great, and you're seeing, well, these people don't have even pants. And then on top of that, because everybody lies, you have so many informants, even 12-year-olds, that there's distrust. I just want to, like, I feel there's so much of that even today in many societies, or that's rising in many societies more and more. But tell
Yeah.
me, in spite of all of that, you still, I want to get to the second part of your journey towards now young adulthood, where you went on to study. You were, if I understand, you were part of the party at one point. And tell us about that. You went to study, you graduated, I think you were 19 or so. You,
Yeah.
you were kind of like emerging and promising member of Communist Party
Yeah.
when you eventually moved to Beijing.
To
Tell us
do
about that time, because I know you had a role there, and this is kind of like interesting part of your
yeah.
life.
Well, uh, uh, Mao died when I was 13 years old, and I think this is the only good thing he did in his life. His death brought to the end of the Cultural Revolution, and also gave the people of China to reflect on what had happened, why it happened that way. And not long, China embarked on the reform, an open reform era, led by Deng Xiaoping. And university reopened because university shut down for 10 years. Now university reopened, and every parent in the minor in the minor every parent was the same. That was, oh, we have to send our kids to university because no matter what, uh, political turmoils in it, it could be another one. So in any case, we have to have us kids educated so that they will live in the advantage position no matter what happens.
So university and education was still a ticket to maybe better life.
Yeah, better life. And also uh, because for 10 years of disaster,
Mm.
people believe in science more than anything else, believe in education than anything else. Because a lot of things happened in the 10 years of Cultural Revolution can be described as anti-intellectual. The entire society try to go the opposite direction, try to treasure education more than ever.
Mhm.
And I myself also thought I should uh, receive a high education. I should go to a university. So for a couple of years, I focused on study without thinking about revolution. So before that, I was in the mood of in the revolutionary mood, trying to help peasants, even uprise. But now I just forgot about it and focused on study. I went to college when I was very young, when I was 15 years old, and I skipped high school. So that was 2 years after Mao died. I went to college to study mathematics. Mathematics was for many young students was their first choice. They think that's the real science, and also that's the place where they can display their aptitude. So I chose mathematics, and dreaming of becoming a good mathematician someday in the future. So I focused on study for a few years, and that by that time, the ruling class, the CCP, ran out cadres. The old generation cadre like my father, who number one old, number two had very little education, and for the goals of modernized China, their competence is inadequate, and the government realized this problem, so they began the project to recruit young intellectuals to become a party member.
And you were one of
even,
them, right?
yeah, I was recruited. At the beginning, we were all hesitant, understandable. Just Mao just died a few years ago, and we had a vivid memory of the Cultural Revolution. We would not want to join the party, but the party leader that time, Hu Yaobang, party chief, he was open-minded, probably most open-minded party chief in the history of CCP. He later was purged by Deng Xiaoping because his liberal ideas.
Mm-hmm.
And he asked us to join the party. He told us, I understand very well why you don't like the party, but if you want to change China, the most efficient way is to join the party, the change from within, which is more efficient than try to do something from without.
So she sold
We
you a
made
very
a lot of
plausible narrative, right?
yeah, it's a very convincing.
Yeah.
And I joined the party with the hope that I can change together with the young intellectual and myself, the party
From
for
inside,
better,
yeah.
and
And
change
wasn't
the country.
wasn't Xi Jinping also part of that generation?
Yes, Xi Jinping is 10 years older than I am, but about the same time joined the party. And also, we were about the same time put in the called we call it succession team.
Yeah. And tell me, I remember you were telling me how one of your tasks was to talk to students
Yeah.
and to kind of tell them
And
that. Tell us about that. That's
I joined the party and promoted very quickly, and I was studying for my master degree. So at same time, I also taught. So I was a university teacher working on my master degree at the same time a party official. So everybody think I was a rising star, have a bright future as a professor and as a party official. Everybody actually envied my career path, but I was a party chief in the chapter. our party, and I have to. My job was to watch those professors and fellow students that happened to be under our jurisdiction. Party have a jurisdiction over the people, and so I every day had to report to my supervisor in the seat in the party to tell them who said what and who was suspicious and what they are up to. you know in most cases I just fabricate my report, and I organized a political study. That time actually is a relatively open area, and everybody tried to criticize the government and the party. And in the party study group, everybody tried to say a lot of radical things by party's standard radical, and it gave me a hard time. If I report truthfully, they would get in trouble.
Wow.
And I had to fabricate each every my report. Each, I'm not exaggerating.
And
Yeah,
you heard all these stories that you didn't want to share to protect students and professors. But what would happen to them if you would actually, inform the government about their?
if I report truthfully, many of them, their career path would be not stop, if not stopped completely, but slowed down. They would say, no, you would be on surveillance, and the promotion, your promotion path is stopped, even in academic.
Yeah.
So, in the serious case, they will try to engage in so-called political education, and in the most serious cases, there may have perspective of criminal charge against them. So
Wow. So basically, in order to advance in the system that you're describing, you had to follow the government line and comply. You were not allowed to have your own ideas that are maybe at odds with whatever government is saying, and you just had to shut up or talk the way government wanted you to talk.
yeah,
That's yeah, no freedom of speech, no freedom of thinking.
I was walking a fine line every day, trying to protect those people and myself. So, but I understood very well. Sooner or later, either some of them would get in trouble, or myself
Or
would
you
get
will
in.
get in trouble. That's how you decided to go to the US for the first time.
Yeah,
Is that
yeah.
right?
So
To do
I
PhD.
decided to quit, but it's very difficult to quit the party. Some people who try to quit the party end up in prison even.
Yeah.
So I have to find a smart way to quit. So that time it was a fashion to leave China to go to Western countries to work for PhD or other high education degree, and I applied to University of California and got admitted. So I came to United States as a party official,
Oh, wow. So you were
and
still a party official. Okay.
yeah, party
Wow. That's
official, and I uh, lied to the U.S. government about my party membership because we were told to do so. There was a training program by the government. They trained us. In the training session, they told us not to review your party membership.
wow.
In any case, and there is a form we had to fill out applying for student visa. One question is whether you are member of Nazi
The
or
Communist Party.
Communist Party, and everybody put no. So because of that, I got trouble when I tried to naturalize in this country. I
Yeah.
already explained it to the U.S. government, but they still, you know,
No, I can't imagine. Like you have so many stories to share, especially, you were trained. I'm just like my mind is blown. You were trained what to do and how to kind of like fake your own
yeah, yeah, yeah.
background in order to get it. That's
It's not. Actually, it's order. It's order. We have to follow.
yeah, it's order. There you go.
It's
Yeah.
order. We have to follow. And but one order I didn't follow. Uh, Number one order is I have to uh, hide my membership, party
Mm,
membership, when I apply for visa. I followed because if I didn't follow, I would not even get my visa. And I applied a visa when I was in China. But the second order was regarding when I got to United States. The second order was when you enter the United States, you report to the embassy
mm.
because you're a party official of a certain level. You should have a party organization inside embassy. I didn't follow that order because when I got to US, everything changed and I decided not to follow. So I followed the first, I didn't follow the second.
And I'm very interested in once you arrived to the United States, what did you notice? What was different? What is
Yeah,
something that stood out to you, considering the
yeah,
vast differences between two societies?
yeah. Well, as a young student, when I first came to United States, I got shocked about many things. Culture shock is too general to describe it.
Mm,
Now I came here, and of course I saw the university, and uh, I was a student. That's my first experience here. What I experienced was the respect that professor had for the student and the free atmosphere in which everybody freely express what they think without any fear.
mm,
When we discuss one question or another, or mathematics or not mathematics, and I saw professors and students engage in political debate, they could freely express what they thought. That amazed me. Number one. Number two, I had a habit. I had that time I bought a second-hand, very old car. During weekend, I went to countryside to see the small towns. That actually amazed me even more. In each every small town of the United States, people live a very easy and free life.
mm,
And in each little town, I saw a very well built, well kept library.
mm.
There are a lot of books in each of the library, all kinds of opinions, all kinds of books there. People went there to read. And also for each of the public library, there was a equipment for the handicapped to get access to. And I thought to myself, the handicapped people are most disadvantaged people in any society. If these people are taken good care of, other people should be taken good care of as well.
I find that's such a good indicator. If disadvantaged people are taken care of, that probably
Yeah,
everybody else is too. That's a sign
yeah,
of
yeah.
a society that's,
So that's the second thing. The third thing is I went to big cities like San Francisco. I saw the high-rise buildings, and I just couldn't believe. I knew, but I couldn't accept in my mind. Those are privately owned,
mm,
privately owned building, high-rise buildings, a huge, magnificent structure owned by private citizens. See those pictures I put together. Free atmosphere in a university. Everybody's express their mind without fear. Those most disadvantaged people taken good care of, and people who have ability to develop themselves could own a high-rise building standing in San Francisco. Those things come together. And I went back to the Chinese classics. Actually, the old Chinese, ancient Chinese, had such ideal.
Interesting. So,
Yeah,
wow, that's really interesting. So you're seeing freedom, you're seeing care, and you're seeing entrepreneurship
opportunity.
and private ownership, and you're seeing, well, that already it's not, again, it's against maybe what communist China had, but there is trace of that in Chinese culture,
Yeah, in Chinese culture, old culture, we had some classics that describe those kind of ideal
kind of
society.
ideals and values. But tell me, because we don't have much time, and I want to get into a few more stories.
Yeah,
So you get amazed by the United States in that way. You see this stark difference, uh, but then you see an opportunity. I would love to just explore briefly when you again go back to China. It was about 1989 when you displayed, I would say, remarkable
yeah,
courage by being involved in Tiananmen Square protests, and then you were the first person to talk about them. Can you just briefly walk us through that? Because you went back and how you were inspired by labor
oh,
or
yeah,
movement, or what was it? Or
yeah,
student movement, sorry.
yeah. That happened after 3 years after I came to this country. I was studying for my PhD degree in mathematics at UC Berkeley.
Mm.
And because of what I had experienced, I just shared with you. I was pretty much determined after I got my PhD and taught math, maybe teach. I'm going to teach mathematics for a few years, and when I would go back and to try to pick up the old dream that I had when I was little, to do something good about our people and the Chinese society. And now I know what our goal would be, more clear than ever. That time, the student move broke out. That gave me a lot of hope. And I naturally became active in United States, leading a movement here, supporting our fellow students back in Beijing. Soon, I was elected by the Chinese student here to go back to support. And I decided to go back. So they elected me. And I decided to go back because I saw a movie, news, CBS news, and I saw a scene. The students were beaten up by armed police, the blood running down their face. I couldn't stay any longer in United States, decided to go back. Then that time, the student body here also elected me to go back. So I went back as a leader of overseas Chinese student to join the movement. And I joined the movement the day after martial law was declared, and I stayed there. I witnessed the massacre for more than 10 hours and almost killed, narrowly escaped. And I also saw tanks running over student and killed the student on the spot. And when I saw it, I was more determined than ever to follow my dream, to do everything possible to change China. 3 days after that, I managed to get back to United States. Now, I was luckier than most of the fellow students in Tiananmen because I had a U.S. visa, and also I had a Chinese passport, which was a privilege that time to most people. I had those privilege to leave China, to escape um, easier than most other participants. So I could get back to United States on the morning of June 7th. The massacre began in early morning of June 4th. Actually, 3 days after that, I came back to United States. And soon I testified before the Human Rights Caucus of US Congress. I actually, with the help of friends, managed to get to Beijing International Airport, where there was a big chaos. The government had not asserted control again, so that I could leave China without incident. 3 days after I left, the first wanted list was issued. So I just escaped that time, and my flight took off in Beijing and landed in Shanghai to take more passengers. I thought there would be problem for me. I will watch very closely, but there was no incident. When the flight took off again, everybody on the plane applauded. So because they celebrate the fact that they could escape China, to escape the anything bad would happen. But I was crying, and I produced out a black bag to mourn those who had fallen in Tiananmen Square, and I was crying all the way to San Francisco International Airport. I walk out the plane and get out the international exit, the custom. And when I walked out, I saw about 100 reporters were waiting for anyone who could report about massacre to them. And they ask, "Oh, have you witnessed a massacre?" They try to grab anybody to ask. That's just 3 days after the massacre started, and I waved to them, and they also saw the black banner on my arm. I
And then you
waved them.
talk to them.
Yeah, I say, "I can tell you what happened." Then they swarmed to me, and I began witnessing.
And that was the first time that the West and, or that we heard about that,
Yeah,
about the
yeah,
encounters and what happened. But tell me, I also remember you had the days of reflection after what happened in Tiananmen Square, and I remember we talked about this famous picture, the tank man, when there's a student standing in front of a tank
yeah.
and in a act of defiance. But you said you had some reflections. You feel like there was something that you or we missed as this event was happening. What was
Yeah.
that?
The Tank Man picture is so famous. Everybody who remembers the Tiananmen Square remembers this picture.
Yeah.
It is one of the most important picture of the 20th century. But that picture was taken in the morning of June 5th,
Yeah.
not on the 4th. Okay. The massacre was still going on that time, and the soldiers still had the order to kill whatever who tried to stop them. But if you look at the video and the end of the picture, the tankman tried to stop a string of tanks. The front tank tried to swerve to avoid him. And he tried to stop again and swerved again and tried to stop. Then what happened after that, nobody knows. But one thing we know for sure, that is the tank driver did not open fire at the tank man, and he did not just run over as the other tank drivers did the day before, which I witnessed. The order to kill has not stopped. So I realized that this soldier actually refused to kill. He could just kill.
And what's the missed opportunity there? So you're saying, I remember you told me there are two tankmen. There's one person who is the student who is aimlessly standing in front of the tank, not letting the tank pass, and then there's another person inside, as you said, defying the order that was issued. If someone is in your way, run them over, kill them, doesn't matter. But they are not doing that. What does that tell you?
So I figure out this soldier is a hero too. He's another tank man. It is so important when the people on the other side of the camp try to do things good. That's the hope. So for more than 3 decades, I try to tell people there are a lot of heroes in Tiananmen Square. Those students who facing bullet try to show their courage, and also the tankmen who define, he defined the power represented by the string of tanks, become the symbol of resistance. We should not forget other type of heroes, the tank driver, the second tankman, who could kill but refused to do so. I try to remember the people that the humanity, in the end, what matters most is the humanity.
I find it very fascinating, especially, I know I'm very interested in change, and we focus on activists or people who are, as you said, in front of the tank or challenging the system. And very often, if you know anything about how change actually works, especially in these kind of situations, you need to understand that there are people from inside the system that need to take different sides. They need to change side. They need to risk something, because who knows what happened to that man who disobeyed the order. Maybe, as you said, we don't know. But and that's a big lesson for me, to understand when you're trying to change something, who's on the other side who is also changing their mind. Don't see everybody as an enemy, but you can see some people inside the system you're changing as potential partners.
Exactly.
And it's not easy, especially when you're facing a tank, or, figuratively speaking, as someone is trying to run you over. It's not easy to be empathetic, as you said, to be human. But just a few short answers, because we're past time. But I would like to I remember you went back, as you said, to the United States. You spent some more time there, and then in 2002 you returned to China again to support the labor movement, and that led, long story short, to your arrest. And if I'm correct, you spent about 5 years in prison. And I remember one thing that kept you kind of going in prison was that you found a love for basketball. I remember a story you shared once about this encounter with an inmate who was about to be executed.
Right.
And his final words.
Yeah. Long story short, because we don't have much time. Much of the 5 years, I was kept in solitary confinement.
Yeah.
Which was very difficult for me. I was not ready for it. I almost collapsed. And I resort to prayer to sustain myself, and also try to do the minor exercises to keep me from becoming insane. So, to maintain my sanity. What I did was writing poems in my head. I wrote a lot of poems in my head, more than 100 poems. And later, I was, I was out of the solitary confinement and put in a cell with other inmates, simply because of the pressure from U.S. And then I was put on the bogus trial and sentenced to 5 years in prison. That sentence came as a surprise for anybody because, but for many people, because many people thought I would sentence to more than 15 years. So also thanks to the U.S. effort.
Many politicians, Congress, and Senate
Yeah,
leaders
exactly.
mobilized
Including
to support your
President,
case. Yes.
both chambers of U.S. Congress and Secretary of State
Yeah.
all worked on for my freedom. So that pressure helped me to get such light sentence. Okay, during my imprisonment, I did a lot of things. I taught many courses and mathematics, economics, English, and Chinese calligraphy, and also I coach a basketball team, as you said. And I heard a lot of story from my inmates. That one story I really want to tell my American friends. That story is more important than ever, given what is going on. Because the U.S. government seems to abandon their principle when it comes to international relations. So each time when there was power outage, the monitor stopped working, so we are not watched. I would hear many inmates shouting out, "The United States of America coming to save us." These were not political prisoners. Based on their experience in China and based on their knowledge about America, they knew America is a beacon of hope. And another story you just mentioned, in our prison, there was we call it a death cell, where those received the death penalty were kept, those on death row. One young guy who was sentenced to death because he stealing motorcycles during a strike hard time. Strike hard time means government campaign against the criminals. So everybody commit crime during that time receive harsher punishment. He got death sentence just by stealing motorcycles. That kind of experience told him this society was not fair. So he said to his inmate the night before he was taken for execution, he said, "I'm not sure if there's going to be another life, afterlife or another life. But if there's going to be another life, I'm not 100% sure whether I'll agree to be born again. I refuse to be born again if I see Chinese flag, but I will agree to be born again if I see American flag." This is a true story. And I share this story with many of my American friends, including congressional leaders from both sides of the aisle.
Yeah, it's a very powerful story because many people here take what I have for granted. Both you and I, in different ways, in different intensity, experience the authoritarian regimes and experience this country, and we see a stark difference. And it is sad to see that this country is leaving many of its values. What do you think the West is getting wrong about China today and the Chinese culture?
Okay. The major mistake the West made was for many years after the Cold War, they believed when China become prosperous, the middle class would emerge in China, which will demand for freedom and democracy. Everything would flow from there. So the past 4 decades of history proved that is wrong. So that is a major mistake.
Yeah. And what about the culture? Do you think we here misunderstand something about Chinese culture?
Chinese culture is very complex, very complex. We have a good part and a bad part. And China always tend to be friendly. That's for sure. And when the CCP leaders come to this country, unlike the leaders of the Soviet Union, they try to, express kind of a goodwill with the U.S. and try to win the sympathy. So after Cold War, the Soviet Union, Russia actually, for a certain period of time, tried to be a good student of democracy. But after Cold War, there's for no single moment China want to be a good student of democracy. But during especially the first 10 years after the Cold War, Russia got punished some way, but China got rewarded for being a bad student. And but at least Russia did not get rewarded. They should as a sincere student of democracy. That actually was one of the reasons for the rise of Putin.
So that's how you see it.
And also a reason for China to believe that they can get away with anything they do.
Interesting.
So this is the lessons we learned.
Well,
Yeah.
Jian, thank you so much for the lessons that you taught us today. I want to thank you for this great conversation. I want to really thank you for for all the work that you've been doing.
Thank you.
And I hope we have more time to talk, because there are many stories that we can dig in deeper. Maybe there's a second part to this conversation. Until the next time, I just want to tell to my share with my listeners and viewers. I hope you take at least one lesson that I'm taking today, and that lesson is that freedom that we enjoy in this country, in the United States, and some other countries in Europe and otherwise, doesn't come without some kind of a generational fight. And
Right.
we have to defend it and win it over and over again. And
Even in this country,
even in this country.
in this country, we cannot take democracy and freedom for granted.
And the question for you, all of you, is what you're going to do about it and what's your part. All right. Thank you so much, Jian.
Thank you.